Sometimes life feels like a fight you didn't sign up for. You're pushing, you're pulling, you're trying to hold it all together with trembling hands and a weary soul. You pray, you cry, you hustle, you bleed, but nothing seems to work. You do everything right, yet the doors stay shut. The people walk away, the plans crumble, and you start to wonder, is it me? Am I broken? But hear me when I say this. You're not broken. You're just forcing something that's not meant to be, yet. You see, there's a time in life when the strongest thing you can do is let go. Stop chasing what keeps running. Stop fixing what keeps falling apart. Stop trying to make people love you who can't even love themselves. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's growth. That's when the shift begins. Because the truth is, everything falls into place when you stop forcing it. That's when the right people stay, the right doors open, the right peace flows. God didn't forget you. He's just rearranging the pieces until they fit perfectly. And when it clicks, oh, it'll feel like the pain had purpose, like the delay was divine. Let me tell you something real, something we don't say out loud often enough. Holding on is not always brave. Sometimes it's a disguise for fear. Fear of change, fear of being alone, fear of failure. We hold on to people who don't see our value, to jobs that drain our joy, to habits that numb our pain, just because we're afraid of what happens if we let go. But there's a deeper strength. The strength that comes when you stand up and say, I deserve more than this. I'm done chasing what's killing my peace. That moment, right there, that's where the real power begins. That's when life shifts. Because letting go doesn't mean you're weak. It means you finally had the courage to stop betraying yourself for something or someone who wasn't willing to meet you halfway. We live in a world that glorifies hustle, struggle, and sacrifice, like the only way to prove your worth is to suffer long enough to earn love, respect, or success. But that's a lie. You don't have to break yourself into pieces for people who wouldn't lift a hand to hold you. You don't have to exhaust your soul to keep doors open that were never meant for you in the first place. The truth is, some battles aren't yours to fight, and the strength it takes to step away from what you once thought you needed, that strength is unmatched. That's the moment you stop being a prisoner to pain and start becoming the keeper of your own peace. Letting go isn't quitting. It's claiming your right to something better. You ever tried holding on to something that keeps slipping? A relationship, a dream, a version of yourself that just doesn't feel right anymore? The tighter you hold on, the more it hurts. It's like trying to hold water in your hand by clenching your fist. It drips out anyway, and all you're left with is tension and frustration. But the moment you open your hand, the moment you release the need to control it all, that's when peace rushes in. That's when your spirit starts to breathe again. Sometimes the very thing you're afraid of losing is the very thing that's been holding you back from discovering who you really are. And the only way to find out what life has for you is to stop forcing what isn't flowing. So many of us think we're strong because we stayed. We stayed in that friendship even though it drained us. We stayed in that relationship even though we were starving for affection. We stayed in that job even though it buried our passion. And people clapped for us. They said we were loyal. They said we were tough. But deep down, we knew we weren't strong. We were scared. Scared to start over. Scared to be misunderstood. Scared to say this is not enough for me. But one day life whispers to your heart and it says, you've been faithful long enough, now be faithful to yourself. And when you finally listen, when you finally walk away, not in anger, but in freedom, that's the day you become powerful beyond belief. Letting go isn't just about walking away from someone or something. Sometimes it's about releasing the expectations you had for how life should be. It's about grieving the story you thought you'd live and finding strength in the story you will live. And that takes courage. It takes faith. It takes a kind of spiritual maturity that says, even if it doesn't look like what I hoped for, I still trust that something good is coming. That mindset, that level of trust, didn't build overnight. It's built through fire, through heartbreak, through nights when you prayed for answers and only got silence. But the silence didn't mean you were alone. It meant something was growing inside you, around you. There's a sacred power in knowing when to walk away, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. When your soul gets tired of begging for energy, peace, or love in places that only offer chaos, you start to wake up. You start to see clearly. You stop making excuses for people who keep showing you they don't care. You stop justifying your suffering as patience. You stop calling it growth when it's really just pain dressed up as loyalty. And you say enough. That word, enough, is freedom. It's the turning point where you realize your story is far from over and you don't have to keep rewriting old chapters hoping for a new ending. You may think that walking away means you failed, that if you let go, you're giving up. But let me ask you, what are you actually giving up? The anxiety, the tears, the nights you questioned your worth? No, you're not giving up. You're rising up. You're reclaiming the parts of you that forgot what peace feels like, that forgot what it's like to wake up without dread. You're choosing yourself, maybe for the first time in a long time. And that's not selfish. That's necessary. Because the longer you stay in a place that doesn't feed your soul, the harder it becomes to recognize yourself in the mirror. And your soul deserves more than survival. It deserves to thrive. People might not understand. They might call you cold. They might call you crazy. Let them talk. They weren't there when you cried alone. They weren't there when you questioned your value. They don't carry the weight you've been dragging day after day. So don't look for validation in people who haven't walked in your shoes. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need permission to let go of what's breaking you. Because this journey, your healing, your freedom, your life, it's yours. And the sooner you realize that, the stronger you become. Not louder, just stronger. Quiet strength. Silent power. The kind that can't be taken away. Sometimes we think we're waiting on God, on a sign, on a miracle, but really heaven is waiting on us. Waiting for us to finally release what we were never meant to carry, to unclench our fists, to stop forcing broken things to be whole again, to stop resurrecting what was meant to be buried. Because there's beauty in the burial. There's rebirth in the release. When you let go, you're not losing. You're making space. Space for peace, space for purpose, space for the kind of love and life you were always meant to live. But it all starts with a decision, a holy, quiet, powerful decision to finally let go. Letting go doesn't mean you'll never feel the pain again. It means the pain won't control you anymore. It won't make your decisions. It won't write your future. It won't define your worth. And as you start to walk away step by step, day by day, you begin to remember who you are. You start hearing your own voice again. You start trusting your own heart again. That's when the healing starts. That's when your eyes open to the beauty that was waiting for you all along. And suddenly you realize you didn't lose anything. You gained everything. Strength, peace, clarity, and most of all, yourself. You can only carry something that doesn't belong to you for so long before your arms grow tired and your spirit begins to break. We've all tried to force things at some point. Relationships that felt one-sided, careers that didn't ignite purpose, friendships that faded without reason. And every time we forced it, we lost a piece of ourselves in the process. You can't make someone love you the right way. You can't force your dream to bloom before its season. You can't convince the wrong thing to act right, no matter how much of your soul you pour into it. Forced things require constant chasing, constant fixing, constant proving, and real love, real purpose, real peace doesn't need that. It flows, it aligns, it stays, even when you stop trying to hold it down. You ever notice how the best moments in life didn't need to be controlled? The people who stayed in your life didn't need convincing. The doors that opened for you didn't need begging, they just happened. There was no struggle, no begging for energy, no chasing for attention, it just fit. That's the thing about what's meant for you. It recognizes you. It honors your value. It makes space for you without demand. But we get so used to fighting for everything, we forget that flow exists. We forget that what's real doesn't require force. And sometimes we mistake our persistence for purpose, when in reality, we're just afraid of letting go of something we were never supposed to cling to in the first place. You can love with your whole heart, give all your energy, sacrifice your time, and still not make something work. And that hurts. It cuts deep because you think, if I just do more, be more, try harder, maybe it'll stay. But love doesn't work like that. Purpose doesn't work like that. You can't twist yourself into knots and call it compatibility. You can't lose your voice and call it communication. And you can't pour into someone endlessly and call it balance. What's meant for you speaks your soul's language. It brings peace, not confusion. It brings growth, not exhaustion. You don't have to chase it. It finds you in your stillness. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it was sent. So many of us confuse struggle with worthiness. We think if I suffer long enough, it'll prove I deserve it. No, that's not divine. That's survival mode. That's trauma talking. You don't earn love by pain. You don't earn purpose by punishment. You receive those things when you align with who you truly are. That's where flow begins, not when you perform, not when you pretend, but when you pause, when you surrender. When you trust that if something is meant to be in your life, it won't need to be dragged into place. It will show up, it will fit, and it will stay. That doesn't mean it won't take work, but it will be a work of love, not force. A work of peace, not pressure. You ever walk into a room and feel like you had to shrink yourself just to be accepted? That's not flow. You ever talk to someone who makes you question your worth more than they affirm it? That's not flow. Flow doesn't require you to dim your light or beg for a seat at the table. Flow makes room for your presence. Flow says you belong here just as you are. And when you stop forcing things, you stop confusing disrespect for love. You stop interpreting chaos as passion. You stop tolerating half-hearted energy as effort. And suddenly life feels lighter, because when you're in the right space with the right people doing the right thing, you won't have to fight to breathe. We've been conditioned to chase success, chase love, chase people who ghost us, chase answers that don't come. But what if the magic wasn't in the chase? What if the miracle was in the letting go? What if the breakthrough comes not when you grip tighter, but when you finally open your hands and say, God, I trust you to bring what's mine? That's when the flow begins. That's when things start showing up you didn't even ask for. That's when blessings start walking into your life without warning, because you've stopped making space for what drains you, and now you're available for what feeds you. Flow is what happens when faith gets louder than fear. You ever watch someone walk away and you beg them to stay only to realize later that their exit was your elevation? That's flow. You ever lose a job and think your world collapsed only to land somewhere that lit your soul on fire? That's flow. You ever lose something you thought you couldn't live without and then months later breathe deeper than ever before? That's flow. You don't always see it in the moment. Sometimes it feels like heartbreak. Sometimes it feels like failure. But life has a way of cleaning out what's blocking your path. And when it does, when you finally stop holding on to what no longer fits, that's when what's truly meant for you begins to unfold in the most natural, powerful way. Forced things age you, they stress you, they chip away at your confidence, they make you question your gut, and they lie to you. They say you're not enough unless you try harder, but you are enough. You've always been enough. You were just trying to thrive in places that couldn't see you clearly. And once you realize that, you stop apologizing for no longer fitting into spaces you've outgrown. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to carry. And in that stillness, in that holy pause, life begins to pour back into you. Peace returns. Joy shows up. Love flows naturally. There is no anxiety in alignment. There is no fear in what's real. When it's right, it feels like ease, not because life gets easy, but because your soul isn't at war anymore. You're not fighting to be seen. You're not begging to be heard. You're not trying to prove you're worthy. You're just being. And being is enough when you're in flow. That's the life you deserve, one that fits you, one that doesn't demand you sacrifice your peace for its presence, one that multiplies your strength, not drains your spirit. And all of that, it comes the moment you stop forcing and start trusting. Pain hits in ways that silence the world around you. You sit there in the middle of a storm, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why it had to be you, why it had to hurt this bad. And in those moments, you start believing pain is punishment, that maybe you're broken, maybe God turned his back, maybe life just doesn't care. But hear me, pain is not your punishment. Pain is your redirection. It's life stepping in and saying, this isn't where you belong. It's God whispering, I have more for you, but first I have to break your comfort. Sometimes we don't move until it hurts too much to stay. Sometimes we don't grow until staying still starts to suffocate us. That pain, it's a message, it's a turning point. It's not the end, it's the detour that leads you closer to purpose. The people you lost, the betrayals you didn't see coming, the doors that slammed shut when you needed them to open. Those moments weren't sent to destroy you, they were sent to release you. You prayed for peace, and God took away the thing keeping you up at night. You prayed for strength, and he allowed the struggle that made you fight harder. You asked for clarity, and he removed the people who kept clouding your judgment. That pain didn't come to punish you, it came to remove the lies, to show you what's real, to strip you down until all that's left is your truth. Because sometimes we hold on so tightly to what's hurting us that it takes pain to open our hands. And when your hands finally open, that's when blessings can begin to flow in. We've been taught to hide our pain, to tuck it behind a smile, to keep moving like everything's fine. But pain has a voice, and it speaks truth if you're willing to listen. That ache in your chest, that constant anxiety, that heaviness in your spirit is trying to tell you something. It's trying to redirect you. You're not supposed to keep forcing yourself into places that drain you. You're not supposed to keep chasing validation from people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. You're not supposed to silence your soul just to maintain someone else's comfort. Pain rises when you've gone too far in the wrong direction. It flares up when your spirit says, enough. And it's in that breaking point that you're given a chance to choose different, to choose you. It takes courage to see pain as a teacher. It takes strength to sit in your suffering and ask, what is this here to show me? Most people run from it. They cover it with noise, with distractions, with temporary highs that numb the low. But if you want transformation, if you want real peace, you've got to face it. You've got to ask your pain what it's trying to teach you, because every time you've cried yourself to sleep, every time you felt alone in a room full of people, every time you thought you weren't enough, that pain was shaping you, not punishing you, shaping you, stretching you, preparing you for a love that won't abandon you, for a purpose that doesn't leave you empty, for a life that finally feels like home. You don't have to like the pain. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt, but you do have to understand it's not without purpose. Look back for a moment. Think about the heartbreak that nearly broke you. Didn't it teach you what love is supposed to feel like? Think about the job that fired you. Didn't it push you towards something that made you come alive again? Think about the season when everything went dark. Didn't you learn how to carry your own light? Pain isn't pretty. It's messy. It's loud. It doesn't always come with explanations, but it always comes with direction. It always leads somewhere if you don't give up before you reach the lesson. Sometimes pain shows up to unmask your life. You thought that person was loyal, pain exposed the truth. You thought that situation was permanent, pain shook it loose. You thought you needed that one thing to survive, pain took it away to show you your real power. It doesn't feel kind in the moment, it feels like betrayal. But pain's purpose isn't to be polite, it's to be honest. And honesty is uncomfortable, but it's the only way you grow. It's the only way you stop settling. It's the only way you finally stop pretending that okay is good enough when you were made for greatness. Pain doesn't show up to torment you, it shows up to rescue you from everything that's been holding you back. You ever wonder why some of your biggest breakthroughs came right after your biggest breakdowns? That's no coincidence. Life bends you before it blesses you. It presses you before it promotes you. Because pressure creates clarity. And when you're under pressure, everything fake falls away. The people who were only there for the good times disappear. The habits that used to numb you stop working. The things you used to lean on crumble. And in that space, when it's just you and the pain, you discover something unshakable. You discover your faith. You discover your worth. You discover your calling. That's the redirection. It's painful, but it's divine. And when you survive it, you don't just return stronger, you return new. Pain breaks your routine. It interrupts your patterns. It pulls you out of the same cycle that kept you stuck. You may not have moved on your own, so pain had to push you. You were settling, you were tolerating, you were surviving instead of thriving. So life sent pain to make you uncomfortable enough to change. Because pain doesn't want you to suffer. It wants you to see. And once you see, you can't unsee. You can't go back to pretending. You can't go back to playing small. You've been called to more, and pain was the call you couldn't ignore. It rang loud enough to wake up everything inside you that was sleeping. It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask why, but don't let your pain convince you that you're cursed. You're not cursed. You're being carved. You're being refined. You're being directed toward a version of yourself that doesn't settle, that doesn't shrink, that doesn't rely on broken things to feel whole. You were made for light, for purpose, for power. And sometimes the only way to find that is to walk through the darkness. But you're not walking it alone. Every tear is a prayer. Every ache is a message. Every moment of pain is a turn in the road that's taking you somewhere you were meant to be. Trust the redirection, even when it's silent, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. There will come a day when you'll look back on everything that broke you and you'll whisper, thank you. Not because the pain was good, but because it was necessary. Necessary to wake you up. Necessary to push you forward. Necessary to make room for joy that doesn't leave. Peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. And love that feels like truth. Until then, don't curse the pain. Don't resent it. Lean into it. Let it teach you. Let it shape you. Let it redirect you. Because pain doesn't mean you've lost favor. It means you're on the verge of finding it. And everything you've been praying for is not behind you. It's not lost. It's just waiting on the other side of the redirection. You ever sit there staring at the clock, wondering why everything you prayed for still hasn't shown up? Why the doors you begged God to open still feel sealed shut? You've been faithful, you've been patient, or at least tried to be, but still the waiting room of life feels like a prison cell. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when you start whispering to yourself, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's not going to happen for me. But let me tell you something. God's delay is not God's denial. His silence is not his absence. His timeline does not run on your watch. You could try to rush it, manipulate it, or force it, but when it's not your time, it won't happen. And when it is your time, nothing and no one can stop it. God's timing is always better than your deadline because his timing sees what your eyes can't, protects you from what your heart can't handle, and delivers what your soul has truly been waiting for. You wanted that relationship to work out so bad, didn't you? You wanted that job to come through. You thought that move, that opportunity, that door was it. You put all your hope in it, but it crumbled. It slipped through your hands like sand, and you thought God was punishing you. You thought he was ignoring you. But what if he was saying no? He was just saying not yet. What if he wasn't blocking you? He was building you. God doesn't want to give you something you're not ready to keep. He doesn't want to bless you in a season where the blessing would break you. You think you're ready, but God sees the whole path. He sees the traps up ahead. He sees the betrayal, the stress, the cracks in your character that would crumble under pressure. So he pauses, he redirects, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to protect you, to preserve you for what's truly yours. You ever rush something only to wish you hadn't? You ever prayed for something so badly, and when you got it, you realize you weren't prepared to handle it? That's why your deadlines don't mean much in the kingdom of heaven. God isn't interested in your schedule. He's interested in your development. He cares more about who you're becoming than how fast you're arriving. Because what good is reaching the mountaintop if your character can't handle the altitude? God isn't slow, he's strategic. And while you're counting minutes, he's shaping moments. While you're watching the clock, he's watching your heart. Every second of silence has a purpose. Every moment of waiting is filled with unseen progress. You're being seasoned, molded, stretched, transformed. And when God says it's time, it won't be a moment too soon or a second too late. It'll be right on time. Divine time. It's hard, I know. Watching other people get what you've been praying for, seeing their blessings show up while you're still in the wilderness. You start comparing, you start resenting, you wonder why it's taking so long for you. But don't let your envy make you forget your faith. Their chapter isn't your chapter. Their pace isn't your pace. What God has for you will never go to someone else. You don't have to compete, you don't have to chase. What's yours is already written. And if it hasn't arrived yet, that means it's still in preparation, still being shaped, still being refined to fit you perfectly. The longer it takes, the deeper the roots. The more it stretches you, the stronger you grow. So don't curse the season of waiting. Learn from it. Rest in it. Trust in it. Because the God who promised you the blessing knows exactly when to deliver it. Sometimes God's greatest gift is unanswered prayer. You think he's ignoring you, but really he's saving you. You wanted that person, but they would have broken you. You wanted that shortcut, but it would have derailed your destiny. You wanted quick success, but it would have fed your ego and starved your spirit. God sees what we can't. And that's why his timing is better than our deadlines. Because we rush to feel something, but he waits until we can carry something. We want what's shiny, he wants what's solid. We chase what's urgent, he builds what's eternal. So when life feels paused, when the doors won't open, when the answer doesn't come, take a breath, take a step back, and remember, the delay is not the enemy. Sometimes the delay is the greatest demonstration of his love. There's a peace that comes from knowing God is never in a hurry. He's never stressed, never late. He's always calm, always in control. And when you trust his timing, you step into that peace. You stop striving, you stop begging, you stop forcing things to happen. Instead, you wake up with hope, not anxiety. You move with faith, not fear. You learn how to walk even when the path is unclear, because you know the one who created the path. And the beauty of God's timing is that when the blessing finally shows up, it comes with ease. It fits, it flows, it feels like home. You won't have to force it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to manipulate anything to keep it. Because what's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to receive it. Letting go of your deadline doesn't mean giving up, it means growing up. It means understanding that your timing was based on what you thought you needed, but God's timing is based on what you're actually called to. You thought you needed to be married by 30. You thought you'd be successful by now. You thought you'd be healed already. But just because it didn't happen when you wanted doesn't mean it won't happen at all. God is not bound by time. He operates in eternity. And sometimes what feels like a delay is really divine alignment. He's lining up resources, lining up people, lining up opportunities you don't even see yet. And when it all comes together, you'll understand why it had to take the time that it did. You'll see that what felt like rejection was really redirection. What felt like waiting was really working. What felt like silence was really strategy. God's timing has a way of humbling us. It reminds us we're not in control. that no matter how much we plan, push, or plead, we don't hold the pen. We're not the author, we're the vessel. And that's not a weakness. That's the beginning of wisdom. When you surrender your timeline, you open your hands. And with open hands, you can finally receive. You stop clinging, you stop panicking, you stop rushing. And instead, you start trusting, you start breathing, you start living in the moment, knowing that even this stretch, this stillness, this silence is part of the story. God doesn't miss steps. He doesn't forget. He doesn't overlook. He orchestrates. And sometimes the things he's setting up are so big, they take more time than you expected, but they'll be worth every second you waited. You ever look back and thank God for what didn't happen? That door you prayed for, thank God it stayed shut. That relationship you chased, thank God it ended. That deadline you thought would destroy you when it passed, thank God it did. Because on the other side of the wait, you see what you couldn't see before. You see his hand in every delay. You see his fingerprints on every no. You see his protection behind every closed door, and you realize he was never late. He was right on time, his time, the perfect time. And suddenly all that pressure you carried to make life work on your schedule melts away. Suddenly you feel light again, free again, because you no longer have to chase what's meant for you. You just have to be ready for it. So the next time you feel forgotten, the next time your deadline comes and goes, the next time you're tempted to force what won't fit, remember who you're waiting on. Not a person, not a system, not a plan, but the creator of time itself. The one who knows the end from the beginning, the one who already prepared the answer before you even knew to ask the question. He's never rushed, never confused, never caught off guard. His timing is always purposeful, always precise, and always better than your deadline. You ever notice how loud the world gets when your spirit is tired? How everything around you starts shouting for your attention, distractions, expectations, deadlines, pressure, but somewhere deep down, your soul is whispering, be still. That whisper is God trying to speak, but we drown him out with our constant movement. We think if we just do more, push harder, force it, we'll get what we want. But what if the very thing you're chasing is hiding behind the stillness you avoid? What if the clarity you need isn't in another plan, another conversation, another hustle, but in the silence you've been afraid to sit in? Silence and stillness, they strip away the noise. They expose the truth you've been trying to outrun. And that's why we avoid them. Because forcing feels safer. But it's in the quiet moments when everything else fades that the real you shows up. That's when God leans in. That's when the lies fall off. That's when you finally hear what's been buried under all that striving. The truth your soul has known all along. And there's a reason we run from stillness. Because stillness shows us the reflection we don't want to see. When the noise stops, the truth speaks. That relationship you keep forcing, the silence tells you it's not love, it's fear of being alone. That job you chase to feel important, stillness tells you you've forgotten who you are without a title. That need to always be doing, achieving, proving, silence whispers you're still trying to earn your worth. And we don't want to hear that, so we keep moving. We fill our calendars, we chase people who don't see us, we force situations to bend to our will, not realizing the very things we're forcing are the ones we need to let go of. Because silence doesn't lie. Stillness doesn't flatter. It reveals. And if you're brave enough to sit in it, you'll find that the truth isn't there to hurt you, it's there to heal you. But healing requires honesty. And honesty starts in the stillness. You can only fake peace for so long. You can only smile through pain for so many days before your soul starts to crack. And that's where silence steps in, not to shame you, but to save you. See, when you stop moving long enough to feel what's actually going on inside of you, you begin to see the patterns. You begin to recognize what you've been ignoring. Maybe you've been forcing relationships because you don't trust you're worthy of love without them. Maybe you've been chasing success because somewhere inside you still feel like you have to prove you matter. Silence doesn't judge you for that. but it won't let you lie to yourself either. Stillness puts a mirror in front of your spirit. And if you're willing to look, if you're willing to stop forcing the illusion, God will start showing you what's real. And what's real? That you don't have to force what's meant for you. What's real? That peace isn't something you chase, something you uncover when the noise dies down. Forcing things gives you the illusion of control, but silence reminds you control is a lie. You can manipulate a situation, but you can't make it right if it's not meant to be. You can try to hold on to people, but if they were never for you, they'll slip through your hands no matter how tightly you grip. Forcing is the enemy of alignment. It masks insecurity as effort. It looks like passion, but it's panic. And that's why we love it, because it keeps us distracted from the root. But silence strips the mask. It sits you down and says, let's talk about what's really going on. And that's where healing begins. That's where transformation starts. Not in your plans, not in your pressure, but in your pause. In the stillness, God shows you who you are without all the noise. And that version of you, that's the one he's been trying to reach all along. The one that doesn't need to hustle for worth or force what's falling apart. The one that remembers you were already enough before the world told you otherwise. Stillness is where you meet yourself, not the self that's always performing, not the one that's always producing, but the self that's been buried beneath your survival mode. When everything is quiet and you're no longer running, you start to hear the ache you've ignored. The ache that says, I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of fighting to be seen. I'm tired of forcing everything just to feel okay. And in that moment, you realize something sacred. The peace you've been chasing in people, in performance, in pressure, it's been inside you the whole time. But you can't access it in chaos. You can't connect to it when your life is filled with noise. You have to be still. You have to get quiet. And yes, that silence will break you down, but it will also build you up. It will show you the difference between what's real and what you've been forcing to look real. It will give you your power back, not because you finally made something happen, but because you finally stopped trying to. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not react, not explain, not chase. Just be still. Let the silence speak. Because silence will tell you what words cannot. Silence reveals the true motives, the true connections, the true intentions of everything around you. The people who only love you when you're useful, you'll hear that truth in the silence. The dreams that no longer light your spirit, that shows up in the stillness. The lies you've believed about yourself for far too long, stillness will challenge them. You'll start to see that forcing wasn't helping you, it was hurting you. You'll see that rushing was robbing you of the wisdom hidden in waiting. You'll understand that sometimes the quiet is the loudest message of all. Because in that stillness, God does his best work. That's where he reshapes your heart, restores your vision, and redefines your worth, not based on what you do, but on who you are. You don't have to fear stillness. It's not your enemy, it's your awakening. It's the moment your soul gets a chance to exhale, to rest, to reset. You've been forcing things because you were afraid of missing out, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of not being enough, unless you made something happen. But fear is loud and fear rushes. Faith, on the other hand, faith is quiet. Faith trusts the pause. Faith doesn't panic when things slow down. It knows that what's meant for you doesn't have to be pushed, pressured, or persuaded. It flows, it fits. It comes with confirmation, not confusion. So when everything around you says move, but your spirit says wait, listen to your spirit. Stillness is not stagnation, it's preparation. It's protection. And in the quiet, you'll hear the gentle reminder that the life you're building is not about force. It's about flow. And you can't flow if you're afraid to be still. There are answers waiting for you in the silence. Clarity you've prayed for. Wisdom you've begged for. Peace you've longed for. But they don't live in the noise. They don't show up when you're trying to force your way through every storm. They show up when you stop trying to control people, when you stop trying to prove your worth, when you stop trying to bend your soul into shapes it was never meant to fit. Silence brings you back to center. Stillness brings you back to truth. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first because silence doesn't soothe your ego, it strips it. Stillness doesn't stroke your pride, it humbles it. But that's where freedom is. Not in the image you've been maintaining, but in the truth you've been avoiding. And once you taste that kind of truth, you won't want to go back. You won't need to force anything again because you'll know who you are without it. Stillness shows you who stays when there's nothing to take. Silence shows you who sees you when you're no longer performing. That's why it's sacred. That's why it's necessary. The people who truly love you, they can sit with you in the silence. They don't need the noise. They don't need the performance. They love the unfiltered you. And that's the beauty of letting go of what you're forcing. You create space for what's real to enter. For the first time, you stop chasing and start attracting. For the first time, you stop begging and start receiving, because your peace becomes your filter. Your silence becomes your superpower. Your stillness becomes your strength. Not because you figured it all out, but because you finally stopped trying to. And in that surrender, you find everything you were forcing and more. When the world tries to convince you to keep pushing, keep forcing, keep grinding, even when your soul is breaking, choose silence, choose stillness. Let your spirit breathe again. Let your heart speak again. The truth that's been buried beneath all the noise, it's waiting for you. It's not gone, it's just quiet. Waiting for you to be quiet too. Because everything that's real, your healing, your purpose, your peace, your alignment, it doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you're still enough, if you're silent enough, you'll hear it, you'll feel it, and it'll remind you. What's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It flows. It feels like peace. It feels like home. And it all begins the moment you stop running from the silence and finally let the stillness speak. Healing don't always begin with a breakthrough. Sometimes it begins with a breakdown. That moment when you finally get tired of reaching for the very thing that keeps cutting you. That person who keeps wounding your spirit. That habit that keeps numbing your soul. You think if you hold on long enough, maybe it'll stop hurting. Maybe they'll change. Maybe this time will be different. But let me tell you something. The wound can't close if you keep ripping it open. Healing only begins the moment you stop reaching, stop calling, stop chasing, stop hoping that the very thing that broke you will suddenly put you back together. It won't. It can't. And deep down, you already know that. But sometimes we're not addicted to the person, we're addicted to the pattern. We keep reaching because we've confused pain with love. We've made suffering a form of loyalty. But love that hurts you constantly, that drains you, that disrespects you, that confuses your worth, that's not love. That's a lesson. And you don't heal by repeating the lesson. You heal when you learn it. You heal when you finally say, enough. Sometimes we don't heal because we don't want to let go of what we wanted it to be. We hold on to the fantasy, not the reality. We reach for who they were in the beginning, not who they are now. And that keeps us stuck. That keeps us wounded. That keeps us reliving the same pain over and over, hoping it ends differently. But healing is brutal honesty. It's realizing that some of the things you're still reaching for were never meant to stay. And you can't grow in peace if you keep running back to chaos. You can't move forward when your hands are full of what's behind you. Reaching is a choice. And every time you reach for what hurts, you tell your heart, this is all I deserve. But your soul knows better. Your spirit is crying out for something deeper, something gentler, something sacred. But you'll never receive it if you don't make room for it. And making room sometimes means letting go of the familiar, even if it's painful. You don't have to keep touching what burned you just to remember the fire. You've already got the scar. Let it heal. We think letting go is weakness, but reaching for what keeps hurting you, that's where the weakness lives. That's where the fear lives. The fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear of facing the pain head on without distraction. So we keep reaching. We call it love. We call it loyalty, but really it's fear wearing a mask. Real healing doesn't come from waiting for someone else to love you right. It comes from deciding to love yourself enough to walk away, to say, I deserve more than this, to say, I am not a second choice, a backup plan, or a doormat. You were created for love that restores, not love that drains. You were created to be nurtured, not neglected. But first, you gotta stop feeding what's starving you. That relationship, that addiction, that toxic cycle. It's not your home, it's your cage. And the key has always been in your hand. But you gotta stop reaching for the lock. Stop opening the door for what God already closed. Let it stay shut. Let the silence speak. Let the healing begin. Healing is not about forgetting what happened. It's about seeing it clearly and choosing not to live there anymore. It's about waking up and realizing this pain is not my identity. This heartbreak is not my future. This situation is not my story's final chapter. But you can't turn the page if you keep going back to the same sentence. You can't start healing while still holding hands with your hurt. And sometimes it's not even about people. Sometimes we reach for the memory. We reach for the fantasy of what used to be or what we thought it could have been. That nostalgia will trick you. It'll make you believe that what hurt you was beautiful, that what left you was necessary. But healing begins with truth. Truth that says, yes, I loved them, but they were not healthy for me. Yes, I wanted it, but it wasn't for me. Yes, I tried, but I'm done breaking myself to fix something that was never mine to heal. That's not bitterness. That's breakthrough. That's wisdom stepping in. That's love, real love, starting to grow inside of you. You can't outpray what you keep entertaining. You ask God for peace, but keep inviting confusion. You ask for healing, but keep running to the same pain. You want better, but you're still watering what keeps dying. Listen to me. Healing is not about being strong enough to hold on. It's about being wise enough to let go. Your breakthrough is on the other side of your boundary. Your peace is on the other side of your no. That person you keep reaching for, they already showed you who they are. That situation that keeps draining you, it already revealed its pattern. The longer you keep reaching, the more you teach your soul to settle. But you weren't built to settle, you were built to rise, built to overcome, built to heal. And that healing begins the moment you stop reaching for what hurts and start reaching inward, into your soul, into your purpose, into your future. God can't give you what's next if you're still begging him to bless what he's trying to remove. Sometimes the reason you're not healing is because you keep making excuses for your pain. You say things like, maybe I was too sensitive, or they didn't mean it, or it's not always that bad. But healing demands truth. And the truth is, your spirit has been in survival mode for far too long. You've tolerated too much. You've minimized your own hurt to protect someone else's ego. But no more. Healing starts when you stop betraying yourself just to maintain something broken. When you stop reaching for what always leaves you empty. That emotional breadcrumb trail they leave you, that's not love, that's manipulation. That temporary high from that habit, that's not healing, that's distraction. You've been surviving, but now it's time to start living. And living requires you to stop looking back at what broke you and start facing forward. Healing is not passive. It's an act of rebellion against everything that tried to keep you small. And that rebellion starts with a choice. I will no longer reach for what hurts. You can't expect to feel whole while holding on to what shattered you. Every time you reach back, you reopen a wound that was trying to close. You stir up emotions that were finally beginning to settle. You let in confusion where clarity was trying to grow. And healing, real healing, requires consistency. It requires you to stop going back and forth, to stop testing your pain to see if it still hurts. It does. It will. Until you stop touching it. Until you stop entertaining it. Until you finally sit with yourself and say, I'm done. That kind of finality is scary. It feels like a death. But what's dying is not you. It's your old patterns, your old wounds, your old version of self that didn't know any better. You're not losing. You're evolving. You're not breaking, you're shedding. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but healing never feels good in the beginning. It feels like loss, but it ends in freedom. There's a moment in every healing journey when you finally get tired of your own suffering, when the pain doesn't just hurt, it insults your spirit. And in that moment, something inside you shifts. You realize you don't need closure. You don't need another apology. You don't need to understand why they did what they did. You just need to stop reaching, stop texting, stop scrolling, stop hoping they come back different. Because the version of you that keeps reaching is not the version that's going to heal. The healed version of you doesn't settle, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink to fit into places that keep wounding her. The healed version stands tall, even in loneliness. She trusts that what's ahead is greater than what she left. And that trust, that's where your power returns. That's where the light breaks through. That's where the scars become sacred, not shameful. But none of that happens if you keep reaching. Healing waits for you the moment you stop chasing what broke you. Healing is a daily decision, not a one-time act. Every morning you'll be tempted to reach, to text, to check on them, to slip back into what was, but every time you choose not to, you get stronger. Every time you resist that urge, you remind your soul, we're not doing this anymore. And little by little, the hold weakens, the pain dulls, the vision clears. One day you'll wake up and realize you're not hurting like you used to. You're not yearning like you used to. You're not reaching anymore. And that's when you know healing didn't happen all at once. It happened in every moment you chose yourself, in every boundary you kept, in every tear you let fall without running back to be comforted by the same hands that caused them. That is healing. That is power. That is the moment you realize you didn't just stop reaching for what hurt you. You started reaching for the version of you that's been waiting to rise. There comes a moment in every life when the hardest thing to do becomes the most necessary. Letting go. And not just of people, but of illusions, of expectations, of the version of your life you thought you needed to be happy. We grip so tightly to the familiar, even when it's breaking us, because we fear what's on the other side of release. We think letting go means giving up, that it means losing something valuable. But sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to loosen your grip. Because holding on to something fake, something forced, something expired only delays what's real, what's meant, what's divine. And the truth is, when you finally find the courage to let go, not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of peace, that's when real things begin to move towards you. That's when God whispers, now you're open, now your heart can receive what I had prepared for you all along. But I couldn't give it to you while your hands were full of what I never meant for you to carry. So don't fear the release. Fear what you're blocking by holding on. We often believe that the longer we hold on, the stronger we are, that loyalty means staying, even when staying kills the best parts of us. But love, real love, doesn't require you to lose yourself. Purpose doesn't demand your peace as a sacrifice. And yet we cling. We cling to broken relationships, to jobs that suffocate us, to friendships that faded years ago. We call it loyalty, but truthfully, it's fear dressed up as devotion. We hold on because we're afraid of the space that will be left behind. But that space, that emptiness, it's not a void, it's a clearing. A sacred place where new things can take root. A place where clarity returns. A place where the noise dies down and your spirit finally speaks up. When you let go, you make room for God's best. You stop chasing validation and start living from alignment. The real things, the destined things, they don't need to be chased. They flow, they come with ease, they recognize your soul, but they cannot come until you stop fighting to keep what's already walking out the door. Sometimes the blessing is in the goodbye. Sometimes we hold on because we've convinced ourselves that we're losing something irreplaceable. We think, if I let this go, what if nothing better comes? That fear will trap you. That fear will have you recycling pain in the name of hope. But here's what you need to understand. What's meant for you does not have to be forced. What's real doesn't require you to beg, to plead, to bend until you break. When something is truly yours, by destiny, by divine design, it will not diminish you, it will not confuse you, it will not make you question your worth. Real love, real purpose, real peace. They don't demand that you suffer first. They arrive when you decide that your healing matters more than your history. They arrive when you stop confusing struggle with significance. You don't earn what's real by enduring what's fake. You attract it by letting go of everything that's beneath the level God is trying to elevate you to. But elevation requires separation. And sometimes what you're losing is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's God clearing out space because something greater is already on the way. Letting go is a silent surrender. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just choosing not to respond, choosing not to call, choosing not to justify your worth to someone who keeps questioning it. It's walking away without slamming the door because you finally understand that your peace matters more than being understood. And in that silence, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to hear yourself again. You begin to feel the parts of you that were buried under all that noise. And slowly, gently, you realize you don't miss the chaos. You don't miss the tension. You don't miss having to shrink just to be tolerated. That's when healing becomes real. That's when you remember who you were before you started reaching for what never reached back. And it's in that remembering that what's real finds you. Because now you're no longer broadcasting from a place of desperation. You're no longer searching with wounded hands. You're standing whole. And wholeness attracts what wholeness deserves. The truth is, some of the things we're holding on to aren't just hurting us, they're hiding us. We're not just afraid of losing them, we're afraid of who we'll be without them. But your identity should never be wrapped in what's unstable. Your worth is not tied to who stays or who leaves. And once you understand that, you stop begging people to value what they were never meant to carry. You stop adjusting your shine to fit into spaces that are too dim for your light. When you let go, you stop performing. You stop proving. You stop compromising the sacred parts of yourself for temporary companionship, attention, or comfort. And in that stillness, you begin to glow again. You begin to rise again. You begin to recognize the difference between attention and affection, between chemistry and compatibility, between history and destiny. What's real doesn't need to be held hostage to stay. It finds you, it stays, and it multiplies your peace, not your anxiety. We think letting go is an act of abandonment, but sometimes it's the ultimate act of love. Love for yourself. Love for your future. Love for the version of you that's been waiting patiently on the other side of your fear. When you finally say, I can't do this anymore, it's not giving up, it's waking up. It's realizing that your soul has outgrown the pain, that the story you were writing no longer fits the role you were trying to keep. And though it may hurt, it is holy, because release is a spiritual act. It says, I trust that what's real will remain. It says, I no longer need to suffer to prove my worth. It says, I'm ready for what's next, even if I don't know what it looks like. That kind of faith moves mountains. That kind of surrender shifts atmospheres. And it unlocks doors you didn't even know were there. Doors only God could open, but only after you let go of the one you've been forcing shut. You were never meant to live life in survival mode. You were created to thrive, to expand, to live fully. But clinging to the past, to pain, to people who no longer honor your spirit keeps you stuck in cycles that dim your brilliance. When you let go, you don't just find new things, you rediscover the old parts of you that got buried along the way. The laughter, the creativity, the peace, the purpose, they were never gone, just silenced by the noise of what you were trying to hold together. And the irony is, when you stop trying to force what's fading, you gain clarity on what's solid. You realize that what's meant for you doesn't demand you lose yourself. It invites you to become more of who you really are. And that version of you, that's the one real love, real peace, real destiny has been waiting to meet. So no, letting go is not losing, it's remembering. Remembering what you deserve, remembering who you are. There are moments in life when the most courageous thing you can do is walk away, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. You can't keep pouring into empty cups hoping they'll start to fill you back. You can't keep breathing life into spaces that leave you breathless. At some point, your healing has to become non-negotiable. Your joy has to become sacred, and your peace has to be the price no one is allowed to touch. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you grew. It means you saw the truth and decided to honor it. It means you stopped pretending. It means you stopped delaying the inevitable and finally chose the beautiful unknown over the painful familiar. And guess what? That's when the shift happens. That's when the storm clears. That's when what's real starts gravitating toward you. Because real things, they don't need to be forced. They just need a heart that's ready. And the moment you let go, yours finally is. Letting go is not an end, it's a beginning. A quiet declaration to the universe that you're done being held hostage by hope and things that drain you. That you're done trying to fix what was never yours to carry. That you're ready to stand tall in the truth, even if it shakes. And yes, it will shake. You might cry, you might feel lost, but those tears, they're not weakness. They're release. They're the old leaving. They're your spirit making space. And soon, the light will start to break through. The heaviness will lift. The silence will feel holy, not empty. And you'll look back and thank yourself for having the courage to stop begging, stop proving, stop chasing. Because what's real, what's truly meant for you, it doesn't require you to sacrifice your sanity to keep it. It shows up in peace. It honors your growth. It fits your soul, not your wounds. And when it arrives, you'll know it didn't come because you forced it. It came because you finally let go. When you finally reach that quiet moment, the one where your hands stop clinging and your heart stops chasing, something deep begins to shift inside of you. The fog clears, the noise quiets, and you realize that everything you were forcing, every door you were trying to kick open, every connection you were holding together by sheer will, was only delaying the peace your soul was crying out for. We hold on because we think our value is tied to what we keep, but the truth is your real value is revealed in what you're willing to release. You don't need to prove yourself to be chosen, and you don't need to suffer to be loved. What's real, whether it's love, purpose, healing, or joy, flows naturally. It does not confuse you. It does not exhaust you. It doesn't keep you up at night wondering if you're good enough. It recognizes you. It meets you where your soul is ready, not where your fear resides. You've been through enough. You've given enough. You've cried enough. Now it's time to let go, not with bitterness, but with grace. Because real alignment, real peace, and real blessings don't show up when you're gripping the counterfeit. They arrive when your hands are free, when your heart is open, and when your spirit is calm. Letting go isn't about losing, it's about making space. And in that space, God begins to move. He begins to send the people, the opportunities, and the healing that truly belong in your life. Not because you begged for it, but because you prepared for it. By surrendering what was never meant for you in the first place. Sometimes the things we hold on to most tightly are the very things blocking what we've been praying for. You heal the moment you stop reaching for what continues to cut you. You grow the moment you choose peace over patterns, and you become unstoppable the moment you let go, not because you're broken, but because you're finally free. So trust the timing, trust the release, trust the silence, and most of all, trust yourself. You're not starting over, you're starting from wisdom. You're not behind, you're being positioned. And the life that's waiting for you is far greater than the comfort you're afraid to lose. So breathe, rest, open your hands, and let what's real find you. Thank you for listening, for showing up for yourself today, and for choosing growth even when it hurts. May your journey be full of grace, strength, and clarity. Keep walking in truth, keep standing in love, and no matter what you face, don't forget your peace is your power. God bless you, stay strong, and thank you again.